We are young, we run free.
What inspired me to become a photographer? Probably lots of things, but when I was a kid, I had come across an old Brownie camera that my parents had, and I found it, was really interested in how it worked. Went out and worked, had jobs so I could actually buy the film and process the images when I was younger, and really fell in love with it then. And I've always been interested in art too. That was probably even a bigger passion than the photography at the time, but photography was just kind of another outlet for me. So when I found out the average artist only made $3,000 a year, I kind of got a little discouraged, and I decided to take some other things. So I studied small business administration, and the whole time I was still taking art classes, and this was all in California. And while I was there, I actually had come across a photography program in one of the community colleges, and I decided, well, I'll give it a whirl. Took the class, really fell in love with it, and that's pretty much how I got into photography, and now I'm doing it as a living here in Colorado. The type of photography we do is portrait photography, everything from weddings, high school seniors, to family photography. I like doing personal stuff too. We go out to eastern Colorado and parts of Nebraska, and we take photographs of old abandoned homesteads that the farmers had left in the 70s. It's really cool. We use a technique called HDR, which is high dynamic range, to get a very interesting look to the images. They're more artsy than photographic, so it makes it kind of a nice blend of what I studied. I also enjoy, landscapes, still life. Pretty much anything that gets in front of my camera, I don't mind photographing it. See, the other photographers that have inspired me are Ansel Adams, and mainly because of his enthusiasm and passion that he had, even as he, got a lot older. He still had a real passion for his craft. The unique portrait photographers out there are Dave Newman and Anna Leibowitz. They've done some really cool stuff in the portrait side of photography, creating some really unique stuff. So there are a lot of other photographers too that, unless you're in the portrait industry, you may or may not have heard of them, but people like Monty Zucker and Don Blair. We've got Sandy Puck and Vicky Tafer, some of the newer people that are in the industry that are creating some really cool stuff too. I don't know, there's still even people that are getting into the industry that are inspiring me too, so it's not just some of the older photographers. I look for inspiration, I guess, kind of everywhere. The changes in technology have made photography quite a different place to be in, especially from a business aspect. When there was film, pretty much all you had to do was take the shot and you sent it to the lab, and they did all the work for you. So digital's kind of become I guess what you'd say, a pro and a con. It's great. The pros are being that you have a lot more control of your work. You get to do a lot of the art. You can make the image look exactly the way you want. But the con is it takes a lot of time to do that. On the film side, along with knowing the artistic aspects of how to capture an image, like composition, color harmony, and lighting, you also had to be pretty technical, because you did get to see the image on the back of the camera like you do now. So you really kind of had to know what you were doing in the film days. With digital, the nice thing about that, you can see if you got the exposure right, the composition right. You actually get to see that on the back. So it's made it a little bit easier for non-technical people to actually enter the industry. So that's kind of a pro too. So another con with technology today is that digital is more expensive. With film, you just had to have cameras and film, and you pretty much send everything to the lab, and they, you got your film back, and well, life was simple then. Now, not only do you have to have camera, film, which is your digital media, you have to have computers to run it. You have to have software to process it and software to manipulate, plugins to make your life easier. All of that costs money, and all of that you have to upgrade every 12 to 18 months. So it's gotten to be a little more expensive. So probably the biggest pro with digital is that you have full control over your images. You actually get to determine how the image looks, the contrast, the density, color balance. You get to have the final say on how that is. So I really like that aspect of it. Unfortunately, along with that, it does take time. So a little bit of con in there, but not a big deal. So as far as the future of photography, I kind of see it being more of what's kind of starting to happen right now, what they call a fusion, and that's where you have a combination of stills and video that are coming together. And I think in the near future you're going to see a lot more of that, and creating some really interesting, creative imagery through that fusion type of photography, where you have the video and the photography combined. It's still a great field to be in. It's probably a little more competitive than it used to be because it is easier to get into. But that shouldn't discourage anyone from getting into it. I think if I could give anybody advice right now, it's definitely study photography, but along with that, study marketing and business as well, because that's actually going to give you an advantage over somebody that just is running around with the camera. With that said, I'd like to say thanks for listening. Appreciate the opportunity to do the interview. All right, okay. So what inspired me to get into the... Yeah, no.